So it is time to replace the brushes in the motor on the golf cart. The symptoms that you get when you need to replace the brushes or to replace the motor on these electric golf carts is that the machine will start bucking. There'll be a decrease in power. When you drive it, there's kind of a stutter. And a lot of times if you stop and you put it in forward or reverse and you push the accelerator down, nothing. If you shake the cart with your body, it'll then kind of kick in, and that is when the brushes make contact and allow the electricity to flow. Now, I've done this on this machine 4 years ago. I was told it probably wouldn't last too long, but it has lasted many miles and 4 years. But it just started doing it again. I know it's not the batteries because the batteries are only a few months old, and it's not a difficult job to do as far as replacing the brushes are concerned. It's just kind of a pain to get to. You have to take, if you got a back seat, you got to take it off, which is those those 2 bolts and nuts, and then I believe, if I recall correctly, just those 2 right there. Then you can pick the seat up and set it to the side. These are just some brushes that I got on Amazon. They're the same kind I used last time. And then you can put those in the motor. You'll have to clean up a little bit on the inside of it, and then you put it back together, and it'll give you some more time. I'll probably replace the motor maybe at the beginning of the summer, but with Christmas and holidays and other expenses coming up, I thought for the time being I would just put a set of brushes in it. These came from Amazon, and they were $34 versus a new motor, which is $600 or $700. All right, seat's out of the way. I went ahead and took the front seat off. I'm going to remove this panel. I can't remember if I removed this one or not. We'll see in a minute. And it just pops out after you remove the 2 push pins. The motor is right there. And you can also see it there. And I'm not sure I need to remove this, but I'm going to go ahead and remove it. There's only 7 push pins. All right, so before we start messing with the electrical connections on the motor, the first thing we want to do is to disconnect the power. And this is going to be the hot line that I'm going to disconnect. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the ground there. They are 1/2-inch sockets. The next step is to disconnect the wiring harness from the motor. So you have 4 wires, 2 there, 2 here, and then you have a plug on the side that needs to be unplugged. It doesn't hurt to take a picture so you remember where the wires go. In this case, they have designations on them, but some do, some don't. The nuts holding these wires, 2 of them are 10mm nuts, and 2 of them are 13mm nuts. All right, so the wiring harness is off, out of the way. By the way, that plug has a little piece right here you can push, and then it just pulls apart. After you get the wiring harness out of the way, the next thing you need to do, and this will free the motor up, is there's 4 bolts. They're 10 millimeter. There's one here at the top. There's likely a bracket, and your wiring harness probably had a zip tie or something holding it to it. There's one right here. There's one on the opposite side from this one, and there's one on the bottom opposite of this one. You need to get those out. I went ahead and put a jack under there just to lift it up a little bit so I could get to the bottom bolts a little bit better. Okay, after you get those 4 bolts out, you're going to want to put something down here to kind of cushion the motor. It's heavy. All you do is slide it to the right and it'll come free, but it'll drop down. And like I said, it's fairly heavy, and it's also very awkward. All right, I got it down. I was trying to film it, but I kept hitting my phone and knocking it off, so I didn't catch that part, but it comes off of there, off of that shaft. So here's the motor out in all its dirt and glory. It's a Hitachi. Those are the numbers on it. As I mentioned, this one's labeled so you know where to put the wires back on. And this is the inside. You can see the carbon, and that's from the brushes wearing down, I assume. Okay, and the brushes are going to be in here. And to get the windings and the armature out, there are 4 bolts, 10 millimeter, I believe, here, and here. Just take those out. All right, and there is our motor. I'm also going to pull the speed controller off. So I got 4 7 millimeter bolts. Just 2 Phillips head screws under the speed controller into a plate here holding the commutator to where the brushes are. And this thing is a mess. It is burnt very well. I'm going to clean that up a little bit with some sandpaper. Try to keep it round instead of being lumpy, but let's look at that. Yeah, it's burnt and dirty. So I'm gonna work on that a little bit and see if I can get it cleaned up. So this commutator is pretty much toast. What I'm doing now is just going through the lines between the sections and trying to knock out some of this burnt copper. There's not much material left there to work with. It's obviously taking a lot of heat. After I do this, I'm going to go over it with some sandpaper. Like I said, this thing has a very limited life left in it. If it'll get me to spring puttering around here at the house, I will buy a new motor. Like I said, I did this 4 years ago. It was bad then. I had some people tell me on a forum that it wasn't going to last very long, but I think 4 years was a pretty decent little amount of time that I wasn't wearing out a new motor. And when I get back together, hopefully I'll get a couple more months out of it, and then I'm gonna put a new and better motor on it. So I'm gonna clean out these channels here, get the melted copper out of them as best as I can. And then go over them with some sandpaper to get some of the carbon off and make them a little smoother. And I'll just do that in a rolling motion. Sometimes these can be machined. I was going to have this one machined before, but the place just wanted nearly as much money as a new motor cost. There are other places apparently that do it cheaper, but there's no machining left in this one. There's barely any gap. You know, originally these sections were this tall. You know, you can probably tell they're almost gone now. It's kind of like worn out brakes on a car when they get down to metal. But all this, these little copper balls, the melted copper, you know, those eat the brushes up. So I'm going to finish this up and get me a piece of sandpaper to start on. Alright, so I've cut me a little strip of 400 grit sandpaper, which is, you know, probably a little too abrasive for this, but there's a lot of melted copper, and so I'm just going to put my hand there and just roll it a little through this, and I'm going to go with some finer grain paper. Hopefully this will get the bulk of the little burnt pieces of copper off in a somewhat uniform way. Alright, so I did a few more twists with the 400 grain paper. I've got most of the carbon off. It's a little bit smoother. I'm going to move up to 600 grain and or 600 grit and work on it a little bit more. Call it good. It'll be smooth enough. It won't wear the brushes down too quick, and hopefully I'll have the motor replaced before it's totally dead. Actually, it's not looking too bad. I don't think I could get another 4 years out of it, but I could probably get a little while. I'm going to go ahead and cut the camera off. I need to move, and I'm going to knock it over if I don't. Use this and the other strip I cut, and then we'll get to the brushes. Alright, I got most of the carbon off. Got it smoothed up as much as possible, given the very small amount of material that I have left. And I'm going to move on to replacing the brushes now. Before I replace the brushes, let's see how much dust comes out of this housing. Alright, so that's all clean on the inside now. I also blew out the housing here with the brushes in it. it was equally as dirty as the rest of the housing. The next thing that's going to happen is these 4 screws holding this plate are going to come out, as well as these studs here. Those studs are where the brushes are connected, and of course these are the brushes. You can see how they're kind of eaten up and barely making contact, and now kind of stuck in the housings. Alright, so let's get these nuts and washers off, and then get the studs loose. I think I'll leave them, I'll just break them loose for now. These over here, 13 millimeter. And these are the replacement brushes. Now these are, I suspect these screws are probably Japanese industrial screw heads instead of the standard Phillips or SAE that we use. So when you get them out, in order to get them loose, you got to put a lot of down pressure on them. And I'm using a regular screwdriver instead of Phillips because I don't have one that'll fit them right. Anyway, they're all broke loose now. All right, so let's get these out of here. And if they're broken, you can use a regular Phillips screwdriver to get them out. There's 4 of them in total, by the way. Alright, let's take the studs out. Set these to the side in the way that they came out, so I will remember how they go back. Alright, and there we have it. I think you can also buy this entire piece, but I'm just going to replace the brushes on it, which is what I did before. So I think what I want to do is just replace 2 brushes at a time. I think that'll keep me from having the jumble of wires. We'll see. So you just grab a hold of the spring there, or you can pull the spring off, but I'm just going to push them out, I think. Alright, then got one free. We'll rotate over here to this one. And get it out. And we'll pull the spring back out. Get a hold of it. Probably gonna have to edit that out. Alright, get my finger in there. Get the brush started. Put the spring back on it. And we'll work this wire back around here. Get the spring out of the way. Get the brush started and let the spring go back on it. And just go out the hole. Alright, we'll do the same with the other two. And this one's really tight in there. Cut it out. Go to the other side. Oh shit, gotta hold the spring. Get the brush out. New brush. Get your hands on the spring. Let it get started. Work your way around to the other one. Same thing. Get your hands on the spring. And get it started. Alright. So we'll need that nut. We want to kind of get our wires situated. So I want to get the two studs started with the brush holder over here, and then I can work the brush holder in and get the wires out of the way, hopefully. I think I need to flip that brush around too. Alright, so what I did off camera is I took the screws back out. This wire come out of this side. The wire needs to come out of this side, as it was binding. So let me flip this brush around. Alright, so there we go. Alright, so the plate is snug down. It's not tight. I'm going to tighten in a second. But when you have your brushes in, and I had one of them backwards, you need to have, say your studs are sticking out here, the wire to the brush needs to be coming out of the right side of the brush. I had this one on the other side and it was binding, wouldn't retract. They need to all be able to retract freely. So I'm going to snug the screws up. Alright, so you need these brushes retracted in order to get it to slide over this bearing, this plate, and onto here. So what I did is push the brushes out and got the spring to rest on the outside of the brushes, and I'm going to see if I can get it on that way. Alright, so now it's on there. What you need to do is take your little screwdriver and push, and the brushes will snap. The spring will snap back onto the top of the brushes like that, and you're in business. You also want to check, make sure that none of your wires are in the way of those brushes moving in and out. Alright, so you want to make sure that you have all your wires out of the way. Some of them you'll have to push under those little tabs. You just need your brushes to be able to move without binding on the wires or hitting the wires. Because they'll, over time, they'll slowly be pushed in. And they need to have slack to do that. It doesn't require much. So after you got all your brushes and slack straightened up, the next thing you want to do is roll this whole housing over. So after you flip it over, you'll need to get these two screws started in that little plate. Now that plate is loose, so the holes are probably not going to be lined up, but you can turn the inside of the motor and it'll turn that inside of the plate, and just look in the holes until you see them line up, and then you can start the screws. You should be able to see it move, and there we go. I think that one's lined up. So what I did to get this screw started is I took this hook. Well, I lined up the plate by rotating the motor, and then I took this hook and worked right past the end of the commutator, between the commutator and the plate, and just pushed the plate a little bit, and then I was able to start the screw, which in turn should have pulled the plate up to this screw hole as well. And so I wound up having to take this little screwdriver right here and go through both holes just to make sure they were centered. And should be able to start this. There you go. Just had to take a little tension off that side. All right, so tighten that up. That's back in. The next thing that goes on is the speed sensors, I think is what you call it. The wire, I noted, goes up by the sign that says Hitachi. So we want to get our 7mm bolts. Get those started. I'll tighten up finger tight, and then just turn them just a little bit with the wrench. They're 7mm, they would break easy, so you don't want to put too much torque on them. Alright, we'll put the nuts and bolts back on the studs. And so I'd kept them kind of how they had come off. You don't want to over tighten these either. They're held in with a basically a plastic grommet with a square shape in it. And that could be, if you put too much pressure on it, you could round that out. You don't want to do that. And then we had two more nuts so that they could be double nutted. Snug. Then your wires will go here, and I had just left the nuts on those so I wouldn't have to store them separately. So now we just need to slide the housing back on to the rest of the motor, and I think I had some bolts around here to hold that together. Slide that on here, like so. Turn it sideways. Alright, I'm assuming that this notch and that mark line up to show you where your bolt holes are. We will test that theory. Yep, that seems to be the case. And this side doesn't have the notch on it, but lining up the one mark gets you there. There's supposed to be 4 of these. Let's see, 3. Here's the first one. Alright, those are in. Just need to snug them up. Again, they're 10mm bolts. Don't over torque them. There's probably a torque setting somewhere for 10mm bolts. I've tightened enough 10mm bolts on the years that I kind of got the feel for it. Alright, and if you've gotten this far, you have rebuilt a golf cart motor, and it's just got to go back under there now. So I jacked the cart up a little bit higher so I can crawl up under it. If you're going to do that, put some jack stands under it. I can imagine that's a very bad way to die, being crushed by a piece of equipment. Alright, so the idea is to get up under here, lift this up, because that's where the motor mounts, that's the housing. Get the end of it to rest on that bar, and then see if I can get it on the shaft. Alright, after I got it balanced on that bar, I tied a strap around it and got it up through here to take the weight off, and I'm going to try to work it over there. And that actually worked incredibly well. I just pulled up on the strap there and got it onto the transmission shaft and slid it up on there. I'm going to leave the strap on it just in case and get the bolt holes lined up. I'm going to spray a little bit of this on the studs for the electrical connection. It's the same stuff I use on the batteries. And then I'm going to go ahead and hook up the wires. Alright, so I got the wires back on. I went ahead and hooked the battery back up. I'm going to put these pieces of plastic back in and give it a test drive before I put the back seat on. You ready to try it out, Miss Tootsie? Alright. Reverse. Nice and smooth, no bucking. Alright, so that's going to be about it for the video. I'll finish putting the seat back on the golf cart and be done with it, hopefully for a few months until I get around to getting a new motor. And I hope this one lasts those few months.